Hey guys, I'm Kristen Nedopak and you're watching Out of This World, the show that takes you behind the scenes and into the worlds of sci-fi and fantasy. Now, the last few years have been exciting for Wheel of Time fans, with the anticipation of the final two novels in a series that has been going on since 1984. Fan mania has hit its peak. And now one of the things that we love to do as fans is catch a glimpse of what the next big novel has in store for us, preferably before it hits the bookshelves. And at DragonCon this year, we got just that. Not only did we get to see the incredible Towers of Midnight book trailer, but Brandon Sanderson popped open his laptop and gave us a glimpse of the prologue titled Distinctions, just for fans. And here it is for all of you guys.
Mandarb's hooves beat a familiar rhythm on a broken ground as Lan Mandragoran rode toward his death. The air made his throat rough, and the surface was sprinkled white with crystals of salt that had seeped up from below. Distant red rock formations loomed to the north where sickness stained them, blight marks, a creeping dark lichen. He continued riding east, parallel to the blight. This was still Saldea, where his wife had deposited him, only narrowly keeping her promise to take him to the borderlands. It had stretched before him for a long time, this road. Though he had turned away from it 20 years ago, agreeing to follow Moiraine, he'd always known that he would return. This was what it meant to bear the name of his fathers, the sword on his hip, the Hadori on his head. This rocky section of northern Saldea was known as the Proska Flats. It was a grim place to ride. Not a plant grew on it. The wind blew from the north, carrying with it a foul stench, like that of a deep sweltering mire bloated with corpses. The sky overhead stormed dark, brooding. That woman, Lan thought, shaking his head. How quickly Nynaeve had learned to talk and think like an Aes Sedai. Riding to his death didn't hurt him, but the pain of knowing she feared for him, that did hurt, badly. He hadn't seen another person in days. The Saldeans had fortifications to the south, but the land here was pocked with broken ravines that made it difficult for Trollocs to assault. They preferred attacking near Meridon. That was no reason to relax, however. One should never relax this close to the Blight. He noted a hilltop. That would be a good place for a scout's post. He made certain to watch it for any sign of movement. He rode around a shallow gulf in the ground, just in case it held waiting ambushers. He kept his hand on his bow. Once he traveled a little farther eastward, he'd cut down into Saldea and crossed Kandor on its good roadways. Then, some gravel rolled down a hillside nearby. Lan carefully slid an arrow from the quiver tied to Mandarb's saddle. Where had the sound come from? To the right, he decided, southward. The hillside there. Someone was approaching from behind it. Lan did not stop Mandarb. If the hoofbeats changed, it would give warning. He quietly raised the bow, feeling the sweat of his fingers inside his fawnhide gloves. He knocked the arrow and pulled carefully, raising it to his cheek, breathing in its scent, goose feathers, resin. A figure walked around the southern hillside. The man froze, an old, shaggy-maned packhorse walking around beside him and continuing on ahead. It stopped only when the rope at its neck grew taut. The man wore a lace-tan shirt and dusty breeches. He had a sword at his waist, and his arms were thick and strong, but he didn't look threatening. In fact, he seemed faintly familiar. Lord Mandragoran, the man said, hastening forward, pulling his horse after. I've found you at last. I assumed you'd be traveling the Creamer Road. Lan lowered his bow and stopped Mandarb. Do I know you? I brought supplies, my lord. The man had black hair and tan skin. Borderlander stock, probably. He continued forward, overeager, yanking on the overloaded packhorse's rope with a thick-fingered hand. I figured that you wouldn't have enough food. Tents, 4 of them just in case. Some water too, feed for the horses, and... Who are you? And how do I know you? And how do you know who I am? The man drew up sharply. I'm Bulin, my lord, from Kandor. From Kandor. Lan remembered a gangly young messenger boy. Was surprised he saw the resemblance. Bulin? That was 20 years ago, man. I know, Lord Mandragoran. When the word spread in the palace that the golden crane was raised, I knew that what I had to do. I've learned the sword well, my lord. I've come to ride with you, and the word of my travel has spread to Ace Daishar, I've never said that one out loud before. It looks like Eyes Daishar. Are we going to go with that?
Yeah.
Eye Daishar?
Yeah.
Eyes Daishar. You're going to run into some of those because I've never read this before out loud, and some of these words I've never said before out loud. I've only read them in my head. Yes, my lord, El Nynaeve. She came to us, you see, told us what you'd done. Others are gathering, but I left first. Knew you'd need supplies. Burn that woman, Lan thought. And she'd made him swear that he would accept those who wished to ride with him. Well, if she could play at games for the truth, then so could he. Lan had said he'd taken anyone who wished to ride with him. This man was not mounted. Therefore, Lan could refuse him. A petty distinction, but 20 years with Aes Sedai had taught him a few things about how to watch one's words. Go back to Eye Daishar, Lan said. Tell them that my wife was wrong and I have not raised the golden crane. But I don't need you, son. Away with you. Lan's heels nudged Mandarb into a walk, and he passed the man standing on the road. For a few moments, Lan thought that his order would be obeyed, though the avoidance of his oath pricked at his conscience. My father was Malkiri, Bulin said from behind. Lan continued on. He died when I was 5, Bulin called. He married a Kandori woman. They both fell to bandits. I don't remember much of them, only something my father told me, that someday we would fight for the golden crane. All I have of him is this. Lan couldn't help but look back as Mandarb continued to walk away. Bulin held up a thin strap of leather, the Hodori, worn on the head of a Malkiri sworn to fight the shadow. I would wear the Hodori of my father, Bulin called, voice growing louder, but I have nobody to ask if I may. That is the tradition, is it not? Someone has to give me the right to don it. Well, I would fight the shadow all my days. He looked down at the Hodori, then back up again and yelled, I would stand against the darkness, Alan Mandragoran. Will you tell me that I cannot? Go to the Dragon Reborn, Lan called to him, or to your queen's army. Either of them will take you. And you? You will ride all the way to the 7 Towers without supplies? I'll forage. Pardon me, my lord, but have you seen the land these days? The blight creeps farther and farther south. Nothing grows. Even in once fertile lands, game is scarce. Lan hesitated. He reined Mandarb in. All those years ago, Bulin called, walking forward, his pack horse walking behind him, I hardly knew who you were, though I know you lost someone dear to you among us. I spent years cursing myself for not serving you better. I swore that I would stand with you someday. He walked up beside Lan. I asked you because I have no father. May I wear the Hodori and fight at your side, Alan Mandragoran, my king. Lan breathed out slowly, stilling his emotions. Nynaeve, when I next see you. But he would not see her again. He tried not to dwell upon that. He had made an oath. Aes Sedai wiggled around their promises, but did that give him the right to do the same? No, a man was his honor. He could not deny Bulin. We ride anonymously, Lan said. We do not raise the golden crane. You tell no one who I am. Yes, my lord, Bulin said. Then wear that Hodori with pride, Lan said. Too few keep to the old ways, and yes, you may join me. Lan nudged Mandarb into motion, Bulin following on foot, and the one became 2. And when I first went to see Team Jordan, the thing I was most nervous about was that I was going to get the names completely wrong. And lo and behold, I got a lot of the names completely wrong. In fact, I still get them wrong. It's because they're these people that have been in my head all this time. And, you know, I know how to say their names, but I don't know how to say their names. And Robert Jordan was actually very particular on how the names were pronounced. So I was very nervous about this, particularly interacting with fans. And so I started asking for how names were pronounced. And I felt a little bit better when I asked, in the presence of Harriet and Maria, I said, so how do you pronounce the name of Elaine's mother? And Harriet says, oh, it's Morgaze. And Maria looked at her and said, no, Jim said Morgaz. And then they got in an argument about what how Jim said it. They went on for like 15 minutes.